Good evening everybody, welcome to the East Area Committee this evening. If you have mobile phones, would you kindly turn them off or to silent please?
Very good point.
Hope members of the public and councillors have had the opportunity to both speak to the CHIPS team and Jackie Hanson and Elaine on the community review provision. We've been here since 6 o'clock to sort of answer questions and take on further sort of contributions from interested members of the public and ourselves as councillors. I know Jackie will be here during the break as well, as she's here for an item that's last on the agenda. I'm not sure about the CHIPS team, they may be, they're here as well, so they'll be here at the break as well. So if you need to speak to them, please do. Tea and coffee is available at the back of the room. Unfortunately, our lovely ladies who bring us cakes aren't here this evening, so there's no cakes, I guess. We hope there's biscuits instead, but we trust they're well. And we do miss them, of course. In terms of the committee meeting, we'll get to the open forum. I've already got about half a dozen questions here submitted in written form, and I'll come on to those at the appropriate time. But in the first instance, formalities, in terms of apologies, we've had apologies from Councillor Kavanagh and Councillor Owers. Councillor Herbert will be coming from London, so we may be a bit late. That's all, everybody else is here, I think. Are there any declarations of interest for members of the committee to declare any item, if they think of any items later down the line, not related or whatever? Any declarations, please do so. Minutes have been circulated with a meeting on, so long ago, I can't remember when it was, 28th of January. Members happy for me to sign those minutes? Yep. Thank you. And following on from those, we do have matters or actions arising, to be more precise, and that's within your agenda papers on page 5. Some have comment in the end part of the table about the progress of these, and I won't read those out. People can read those for themselves. I believe Dr. Eva will be asking a follow-up question to his question at the last meeting, so we'll address that then. If any of the members who are asked, the committee members asked to deal with one of those actions who want to make a comment now, please do. Yes. Okay, Councillor Johnson.
Regarding the issue of following up Moulton's close residents' concerns about the Chisholm Trail and the City Deal consultation, that has been followed up with the relevant county council officers, and I think the full response has now been given to the person who raised the initial question.
Thank you. Thank you. Any others, Councillor Walsh?
I agreed to provide a briefing note on prohibiting pavement parking. I see Mr Wood has provided us with a helpful Q&A, but I also sent to the commission manager yesterday a parliamentary briefing note, thanks to Mr Gawthorpe, which I can't see, but I assume is somewhere to be found. It's published on the website.
Yes. Okay, Councillor Roberts. Yes, if you would, please.
In regards, with regard to Margaret Kramer, we had, I thought, what was quite a constructive meeting with Joe Dix on site, and a lot of that feeds into what I suppose some people would have read already in the Cambridge News story about what we're looking at doing with taxis, and obviously what the Camden Stagecoach are looking at doing with buses. In terms of the College Rec, I've provisionally looked at figures for keeping the rec potentially open, which I'll feed back. It comes back in the cycle to the June Environment Committee, so it will be included in that report, and obviously from that action can be taken in the correct cycle of events, if that makes sense. But I've emailed back to the group just to keep them informed about where we are, and obviously to come on to that meeting.
Okay, Mr Wood did express a wish to address the committee during the open forum about the pavement parking issues. But if could you happy for me to take that now, as it's just been referred to by Councillor Walsh. Is that okay? Yeah. Richard, if you want to make your point, and there is a helpful sheet that Richard has provided. He's been looking into this for several years and has provided a quick Q&A on pavement parking issues and the ins and outs of that. Richard?
Thank you very much, Chair. And first of all, thank you very much to Councillor Walsh for researching this. If you look at page 11 of his report, you'll see that there was a letter from the then Under-Secretary of State, at the time was Norman Baker, to all traffic authorities, which in our case is Cambridgeshire County Council, making it somewhat easier for them to introduce a traffic regulation order, TRO, to prevent pavement parking and parking on verges and central reservations, and to put up the relevant signage. And that's referred to as it's point 3.1, I think, isn't it, on the report. Now, along Mill Road, there is a considerable problem about vehicles pulling onto the pavement. There are particular hotspots around Lloyds Bank where, in particular, private hire cars, taxis pull on to allow their customers to withdraw cash from machines, totally illegally. But there is a general issue of delivery vehicles pulling onto the pavement along Mill Road. Now, currently, Cambridgeshire County Council, as a traffic authority which has decriminalised parking within Cambridge City, actually have the right to institute a traffic regulation and put up standard no parking on footway signs. Now, I am aware that at other area committees there's been this particular issue of obstructing the pavements with vehicles has been discussed under police matters, and as we all know, the police are very short of funds and don't really have the time to be enforcing the issue of driving onto the pavements, which logic tells us is the necessary prerequisite to parking on the pavements, which is in itself an offence. But with a TRO, the County Council could actually enforce it with their existing traffic wardens or civil enforcement officers, as we should talk of them correctly, and they could ticket offenders instantly without waiting to see why they're on the pavement. There's a sign there that says no pavement parking, you're on the pavement, it's an instant ticket. So our CEOs, traffic wardens if you like, could issue penalty charge notices. Now, people might be saying, well, yeah, but we're in an austerity, budgets are cut, but this should be self-financing because money from penalty charge notices is used to pay for the cost of enforcement, with any surplus ring-fenced for public transport and so on and so forth. The other objection I have heard is, how will this impact on Romsey's side streets? Well, Mr Chair, the traffic regulation order would only apply to such streets or roads or parts of streets or road to which the traffic regulation order was instituted. So, for example, if the County Council wanted to do an experiment along, for example, Mill Road from Coleridge Road to East Road, prohibiting pavement parking, that would have no impact whatsoever on the existing pavement parking bays in the side streets of Romsey. I've also heard people say that, well, what about deliveries to shops? How will it impact on those? Well, those of you who do walk up and down Mill Road from time to time will see that some delivery drivers are responsible. They stop their vehicles on the carriageway, they unload and move off again. Some are irresponsible and pull onto the footway, obstructing it. there would be no change whatsoever, no impact whatsoever onto deliveries to our local shops. And with so many independent traders, I'm sure every single councillor in this room would want to ensure that there is no impact on their ability to trade and to receive deliveries. The only difference would be that all vehicles would have to be to the standard of the responsible drivers. I've had it said to me that, well, will this impact on a bus service? But if you observe along Mill Road, buses always wait when there's a stationary vehicle. Even if it's partly on the pavement, there isn't safe space to pass. There is a danger when two streams of motor traffic are attempting to pass a stationary, partially pavement parked vehicle. The danger is it's too close and it can lead to squeezing accidents for cyclists. The great benefit would be to all pedestrians, but particularly to people with toddlers, and especially to those who walk with mobility aids or are chair users, like our one-time mayor, for example, Councillor Jerry Bird. And I would urge you to press the County Council's Highway Authority to institute a temporary TRO to assess the impact of abandoned pavement parking along Mill Road. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you for all the work you've been doing on this, and it does help us as councillors, and you've done a lot of research and legwork already. Thank you. And I'll see you leave that with Councillor Walsh and other county colleagues to pursue with their relevant officers at the appropriate times. We do have quite a few questions for the open forum, which we'll come to next. If people have questions to raise from the floor, then I will take those as well. But I'll take them in the order they've arrived on my desk. Margaret Cranmer, you have a question. Margaret, do you want to ask the question? And
I've got two.
sorry, you've got two questions, beg pardon, yeah.
For the Mill Road, Tenison Road junction, the county revised plans for traffic calming. They removed bollards because they said it would cost too much to replace them and they foresaw that there would be a liability for maintenance budget and they couldn't afford to repair or to replace them if they were damaged. Now, when the calming plans went to the Joint Area Committee, there's a picture under the option 1 and it distinctly shows bollards on it. And I raised at the county the fact there are 16 bollards by the Northern Access Road. And they said, they replied to me, said they were there for visual impact and to warn drivers because the road looks like it goes straight through. Now, in my view, the Mill Road, Tenison Road is an extremely dangerous junction. And if you need lights at the St Barnabas Road junction, you certainly need something at the Mill Road, Tenison Road junction. And I do not think a slightly raised platform will cut the mustard. And I think it is a safety issue, and I do not think the argument that pushchairs cannot get past is valid. And then the other argument was they have to be a certain distance from the carriageway. They have to be 450 millimetres. Well, I've been down Tenison Road measuring, and they range from being 200 millimetres from the carriageway to 340 millimetres from the carriageway. And if you look in Hooper Street, they're even closer to the carriageway. So I think this is an issue that I would like the East Area Committee to recommend that bollards do be installed, even if it's only 2 either side, because I think it is a major safety issue. And if not bollards, then please can we have railings? And the other question was, please can we have a reduction in taxi licences, because they are driving without consideration, they're speeding, and they're driving right through the road that's closed in both directions, right under the notices that say road closed.
Okay, thank you, Margaret. Councillor Walsh, you want to reply to the first one, perhaps Councillor Benstead to the second?
Well, firstly, just for Mr Wood, I will try and get this put onto the Highways and Community Infrastructure work programme. But to Mrs Cranmer, I have a lot of sympathy for the view you put, because at the Joint Area Committee, elected politicians approved a scheme which the officers then told us was perfectly viable and had no problems in it. And a whole series, whether it's water mains, whether it's trees, whether it's build-outs, a whole series of things have become deeply problematic in this scheme. And we've managed to claw back virtually everything, save the Tenison Road Avenue junction and the Tenison Road Mill Road junction. So I would also seek the committee's support in trying to levy as much weight as possible on the county officers, because I do not think that the way this scheme has been implemented shows the county in at all a good light. And I think what the people came to expect from the county council is already pretty low. Even this shows just how bad the county council can sometimes be. So I would seek the committee's support also in levying for those bollards, because they did tell us at one point that they were fine to put in.
Thank you, Councillor Walsh. Councillor Benson, what? Come on to the second part.
Yes, if I can get a little red light to come on, yes, I'll come in on that. With regard to taxi numbers within the Cambridge city boundary, I always do my little prelim on this to explain the situation. We call taxis everything that picks somebody up and takes them from one place to another, but actually there are two categories. There are private hire vehicles, which are booked through a main switchboard and come and pick you up from your home. And there are hackney carriages which work off the ranks and can be flagged down in the street. Cambridge City Council now regulates the number of hackney carriages that operate within the city. The previous Liberal Democrat administration took the cap away about 15 years ago and allowed the market to the taxi market to find its own level. When the Labour group took control of the City Council now nearly 2 years ago, one of the first things that we did was initiated a need survey to find out if there was any unmet demand for taxis within the Cambridge City. The survey showed that there was no unmet demand, so we went out to consultation, and after consultation we the City Council, agreed unanimously actually, that we would impose a cap on the number of hackney carriages within Cambridge City. That number is capped at around 323. Unfortunately, licences, plates that have already been issued to vehicles, we can't do anything about. And there are possibly exceptional circumstances when we will issue plates to new vehicles, and we may come on to that, what that circumstances may be later on, or we may not. But we cannot, by law, limit the number of private hire vehicles that operate within the city. The other issue is that private hire vehicles that are operated by operators outside of the city can pick up and drop off within the city, though they can't be flagged down and they can't work from the City Council taxi ranks. We're doing what we can to reduce the numbers of taxis, but it's unlikely that that legally we can do anything to reduce the number of hackney carriages, because providing the drivers and the owners of the hackney carriages renew their plates onto vehicles that fit within our category, we can't do anything to actually take the plates away from anybody. So I'm afraid at the moment we're stuck at 320 some odd, but the situation could have been a lot worse. It could have been that anybody who applied and had a suitable vehicle could have continued to get in their plates renewed, and the numbers would have increased and would have increased and would have increased.
Thank you. No, I'm not going to take any more replies to that, Councillor Romsey. I've got another 10 questions already listed here, and I've got a few from the audience, no doubt, as well.
Very short.
It better be, go on then.
There is a taxi forum coming up, and I've asked the officers to talk to the taxi drivers about driving on Tenison Road, because it is illegal at the moment. It's a closed road, and it's causing dangers to pedestrians and the workers.
Thank you. Thank you. Right, next question is from Sandra Stamp. I've got one from Roy as well, but Sandra, you're down first. Would you like to ask your question?
Yeah, it's about the amount of traffic and parking in Romsey Terrace. We're we're just a small narrow cul-de-sac and the parking on there is very, very limited on one side. And there's hardly any parking for residents. At the moment, the terrace is used by taxi drivers to stop and have their breaks, and people just to turn around and anybody else parking apart from residents. We were wondering with our residents that in Victoria Park they've made access only, parking restricted to residents and no visitors, and we wondered if we could have the same down the terrace. Because we are just a cul-de-sac, we're not through road.
I'll offer the opportunity to county members first to respond, as it's highways matter. Councillor McGuinness.
Hi, good evening, Sandra. I had put this request in to the head of highways at Lachlan in response to your request previously. He's been to the site, and I understand he renewed the existing signage that was there that was inadequate. They've put an additional sign there which is more visible, which is about a no-through road. I will ask again, since you have brought it up at East Area, as to why the request which I had put through for the access only for residents, as you say, there is some existing signage elsewhere, and I had worded that quite carefully, but as I say, the decision has been taken, and he said something to me saying that it had been looked at and updated, and they just renewed the no entry bit. So as I say, I'm happy to put that back forward to him again.
Well, as residents, can we actually have a meeting with him?
Yeah, I'm also happy to request that you would like to discuss with the officer, and
Yeah,
I will
because it is really a problem.
I will talk to you after. Well, I'll talk to you in the break and get some idea of dates, and obviously liaise and try and arrange that for you.
Okay. Anything, I'm not sure there's anything to add when obviously Councillor McGuinness has agreed to invite Evan to the street to speak to the
I was
resident.
going to add what the procedure is for getting a resident parking scheme, but if you don't want to do it,
Oh, sorry, Councillor White, go on.
Sorry, I've just been inquiring into this about how to get a resident's parking scheme, and the county have now appointed a person who's in charge of this. And the key thing that needs to be done is a survey of residents of the area. I've organised one of those in Silverwood Close, and we've got a residents' parking scheme, and I'm looking to organise another one in another part of Abbey Ward. And the point is that if sufficient numbers of people say they are willing to purchase a permit, now it's not just, want a parking scheme, but are willing to purchase a permit, if that will cover the cost of a traffic warden, then you stand quite a good chance of getting a residents' parking scheme, which has, I'm afraid, to be paid for. So the thing to do is you need a survey of residents.
We're not
Sorry, that wasn't the question. Sorry, Councillor Smith.
Yes, as a former West Chesterton resident, my understanding of the sign that on Victoria, the entrance to Victoria Park, is that it was erected by residents, and it actually has no legal basis. So you might look into that when you're
Thank you very much, Councillor. It's mainly why he hasn't gone ahead with it.
But the point being, it does seem to be working, so there is possibly scope to look at that. Yes, the question was about whether signage of Victoria Park sort of nature would be sensible for Romsey Terrace. That's the question, Sandra. So thank you.
The article in the paper, it doesn't look like a residence, and it is actually the police go.
Yeah, I think
about a resident. This is completely different.
Yes.
if Mr. Loughlin is prepared to come and speak to you on about your own particular problem on the terrace, that's probably the best course of action at this point.
That's the key.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Following on, Roy would like to ask your question. Roy Stamp.
Yeah. I know that you don't deal with planning here anymore, but this is about a planning issue that has been happening or going on in Romsey Terrace. It's been going on for quite some time actually. Robinson College put in some plans to build in the back of their gardens in Romsey Terrace. We put up quite an objection to it for obvious reasons, for lots of good reasons, and Bidwell's acting on behalf of Robinson College withdrew 3 times. On the 4th time, I assumed that they didn't think they'd get anywhere, so they used a little legal loophole and pulled out right 2 days before it was to go to a development control forum. So we were actually denied the development control forum, so we didn't get our chance to speak to people or talk to anybody. They never actually had a consultation with us. They did have a showing of plans once where we all went along and looked at the plans, but there was never a proper consultation. It is possible, however, to ask for an appeal to be determined by a hearing procedure rather than a written submission if it needs certain criteria, 2 of which are relevant. So I'll tell you what the 2 are. The inspector is likely to need to test evidence, sunlight, daylight, overshadowing issues, which are a key consideration here, fall into the category that residents will be challenging the assessment which was submitted in the support of the application. The case has generated significant local interest with over 50 objections clearly demonstrating that. The appeal prevented us having a development control forum, and we would therefore ask the East Area Committee to request a hearing procedure for the appeal so that local residents have the opportunity to put their case to the inspector.
Okay, I'll respond partly, but Councillor Smart, you've got to come in first.
Yes, I have been talking to the officers about this. I think actually if the steering committee did support that application, it would be helpful. Or at least it would indicate that this is... I mean, one of the things about this particular application is that I know that the people in Romsey Terrace are afraid that it's going to be a precedent for very, very intensive backfill. Now, we can say that every application is judged on its merits, but that is, and that is more or less true, but people do quote precedents, so I think there's a point about it's a very, very tight site.
Mike doesn't want me to talk. There we are. Just to endorse what Mr. Stamp is saying, I think he makes a very powerful case. The residents have worked very hard to demonstrate the need for a proper discussion, and I think that we need to support that case as strongly as we can.
2 points to bear in mind. Of course, although it has been sent to the Government Inspector for non-determination, the Council will still have to give what would have been their recommendation in that process. And clearly there is a high level of interest in terms of the number of representations received by the planning officer. I will certainly raise with Sarah Dyer the view that was expressed tonight that residents would like it to be done on the basis of a public hearing type scenario rather than written representations because of that interest and because to flesh out all the aspects of it will probably be the central course of action anyway. So I should take that forward.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. Taylor, you had a question. Richard, do you want to ask it yourself?
Yeah.
Yes, you do.
Thank you. So I'm a regular user of the paths on Stourbridge Common and onto Riverside, and I was very surprised when I came to your last meeting to hear about the council's proposals for the area from a member of the public. I would have thought that proposals for an area like that, or any public area, public highway, bit of the public realm, I'd expect them to be as a substantive item on the agenda. I'd expect perhaps signs to be up in the area and with notices to say that there are plans to change things, and I'd expect detailed plans to be on council's websites. None of that has happened. The only way that the plans for that area have come to light is by a member of the public speaking at the last meeting, Mr. Eva. So what I'd like to encourage today is to encourage some properly publicised public consultation on whatever those proposals are. I was very concerned listening to the last meeting to hear that the proposals are only, both in the initial stage that Mr. Eva spoke about last time and the next stage, are only to consult immediately local residents rather than the wider public. So I'd encourage a consultation as soon as possible with the wider public. You're not actually reaching all the local residents. I spoke to an immediately local resident earlier today who said he wasn't aware of of the proposals. I'd also like to ask about the view which Councillor Whitehead expressed at the last meeting, and I also spoke to her in a break in the meeting, and the question that I put to her is how has she come to the view that the interests of a small number of residents who want parking spaces are more important than the interests of the wider city and the wider population when it comes to what we do with that area of Riverside. So the question that I would like Councillor Whitehead to answer is how has she come to that balanced view which puts the views of 6 residents or so who want a parking space over thousands who walk and cycle through the area and of the city and country as a whole?
Before Councillor Whitehead comes in, if you read the minutes, there is a clear answer from Councillor Whitehead at that meeting, which is reported in the minutes and recorded in the minutes, and she may wish to reiterate that point. In terms of consultations, clearly there is the immediate statutory consultation protocol where anybody within the immediate area is formally consulted by letter. But clearly, anybody who is aware of the proposal, and yes, you have a point about how they become aware of it, but that is where site notices and visual notices for people who traverse that route comes into play. They clearly have the right then to make their views known, whether they were formally consulted by letter or not. And Cambridge being Cambridge, people across the city comment on all sorts of applications, whether it be traffic, planning or otherwise, when they live, you know, the other side completely to where that application may occur. I'll just make that point. Councillor Whitehead, do you want to come back with any?
What is the proposal? Can someone say?
It isn't. Well, Richard and Peter and I are involved in discussions about the improvement of the Stourbridge Common end of Riverside. And there are, at the moment, some ideas which are being formulated to produce a formal consultation document, but we are not quite at that stage yet. Once we are at that stage, then it will go out to all people, and there will be notices everywhere about consulting about it, but we are still in process. As regards the right of people who live on that end of Riverside to park their cars, I said quite clearly that the council has to take into account the needs of residents who may want to park their car, the needs of cyclists and the needs of pedestrians, and that we were weighing all of those things up together, and we do not favour one group over the other. We are trying to come up with a solution, and this is why it's taken so long, that would be acceptable to all those people. Whether we will achieve that or not, I don't know, but that is what we are aiming to do. I do not support the rights of any one group over the other, and neither do I think either of my colleagues. We are trying to come up with a solution to what is a very, very difficult problem.
Thank you. Right, can we move on to Mr. Brigham? Alan, do you want to ask your question?
Thanks. Alan Brigham, East Mill Road Action Group. It's about the Romsey Town Square project, which emerged in 2008 from a residents' meeting in Romsey. I think there were about 200 people there, and it came up with the idea of having a focal point in the middle of Romsey. And this went to East Area Residents' meeting in 2013, which was well attended, and it was a good event. And what came out of that, this is the wordings from the minutes, was to create a town square using quality paving, seating and public art by Mill Road Co-op St Philip's Chair. And the comment from officers is strong local support for the town square proposal from local residents and St Philip's Church. And the idea of it, behind it was to create a quality, distinctive space that stood out as a distinctive, as a visual highlight on a journey down Mill Road, and acted as a focal point for the residents of Romsey, where all ages and social groups could intermingle. Well, we've been waiting since 2013 for something to happen, and 4 weeks ago, suddenly a consultation appears on the council website, which appears to bear no reflection whatsoever of the briefs that emerged from the residents' workshop. The main questions in the consultation are giving you a choice of 2 sorts of bike rack or 3 sorts of tree grill. And although there is a space to comment, it doesn't ask whether it creates a successful public space. It doesn't mention anything about seating. It doesn't mention anything about public art, which is a key part of the original brief to give the area character. It doesn't ask anything about quality material. And it doesn't appear to wrap around St Philip's Church, which really the idea of it was to create a focal point between two streets, Catherine Street and Fode Street, in the middle of Romsey, next to the co-op and next to the church, which has been beautifully restored, next to the community cafe and next to the chemist, which is used by a lot of older people, and adjacent to the crossing, linking both sides of Mill Road. So this is the centre of the Romsey shopping area. It was to create a distinctive space and to use materials that we're all too used to in the city centre, which don't seem to come beyond the city centre. And Romsey has recently made a conservation area, so Phillips Church has been beautifully restored. So the idea was to actually use these materials in this new conservation area to give it some meaning. So the questions, I've got three really. Why does the consultation not reflect the brief that was agreed at the East Area Residents Workshop in 2013? And can we have revised plans which do reflect the aspirations of that 2013 Residents Workshop? Yeah. Secondly, what's the point of having a Residents Workshop and a brief coming out of it if the result is something completely... The result is actually designed with the absence of seating and one circular seat going around a tree where nobody can talk to anybody, to create a space where nobody can intermingle or have any social interaction, which is the complete opposite of the original idea. And finally, why has it taken so long? And why have the plans appeared to have failed to include any joint working with the county or to include public art funding? And it's been said that the Cavendish Road project is instead of this, but actually the Cavendish Road project was meant to be completed by 2013, and this is a completely separate project from that. So really, why is there no indication of joined up local government?
Okay. Where's the Romsey Council wish to? Councillor Smith?
Here we go again. It's going to be the same one, I think. Thank you very much. Thanks, Alan. We've been chatting about this, and I think it's very clear, looking at the responses that are coming in from residents, that there is a desire for something that's much stronger than what's been put forward, and that's absolutely obvious from what's coming through from emails that I've received. I know that my colleague Dave has received as well. One of the things I would like to suggest is that we obviously have to let the consultation run. It's in process at the moment, and I wouldn't like to suggest anything in the middle of a consultation that would suggest that we don't see what the results of that are, but I think we need to do a lot of follow-up discussion with this. So one of the things that I would like to suggest is that we have some further workshopping time, so that we can really make sure that we have a proposal that is discussing what residents, a large group of residents want. There are many needs, but I think we can come up with a plan that meets those needs, and I'm really happy to work with officers and discuss with residents to see how we can help to move that forward.
From the outside, of course, if a consultation throws up the continuous response and we're not happy with what you're proposing, then clearly you'll just respond to that point. It may, yes, again, further delay what you expressed quite cogently in your question. Go on, Mr.
My question is about process as much as the end result. Why is it taking three... I drove here tonight and I thought, why am I coming to East Area to shout and get worked up about this when it was set in motion 3 years ago and agreed? Why has it taken 3 years? Why has something completely different emerged from what was actually agreed? We've had a residents' workshop. We went through all this. Why has it taken 3 years? And why has there been no joined up local government? I hear about joined up local government. Why aren't we working with the county? Why is the public art not included? Something seems to have gone on with the process.
Sure, unless any of the Romsey councillors can answer that, I certainly can't answer that question, Alan, tonight, but we'll try and get an answer for you, of course. Councillor Smart?
I think the only thing I can add is that finances being what they are, I think what we want to be sure is that what we can do now is leading towards and not cutting off what the ideal is. And I accept that, well, it's quite obvious that lots of people are disappointed and don't feel that it's what it is. I think the important thing is to see it, to make sure that it is a stage one, rather than stopping the ideal happening when it can.
Councillor Bollards, just want to add to that?
just to add, I feel your frustration, Alan, as you know from discussion that I was also at that workshop, and the vision that we share is a good one, I believe. I think I'm with Councillor Smith. Obviously, it's going to be interesting to see what comes in from the consultation. The process in itself, I know from 2013 that there was a big backlog, is what I was being told, of the projects across the city for Section 106. And over the last few years, each time I kept trying to push and say what's happening, it's been in a to-do list. I feel your frustration. However, there's some reassurance that actually for it to go ahead and with the money that's secured, of course it's time bound because it's Section 106 money, so actually we should see things hopefully moving more quickly, and I'm pleased that Councillor Smith has said, I think there does need to be an additional public consultation, again because of the time span, but I'm completely behind trying to make sure that there is an appropriate and sort of a visionary design that comes out, and which can be, the original vision of a Romsey Town Square, which I think will be excellent.
We'll certainly try and get a more fulsome reply to your questions, Alan.
I would like a review about process. Why was there no joined up local government?
That's in one of your questions, isn't it?
I've heard joined up local government for so long, and it still isn't happening.
That is one of your questions.
That's one of my questions, yeah.
Yeah, sorry, we can't go further than that, really. Jean, you have a question that's slightly related, but you wish to give your own sort of view on it.
Well, yes, my question is related. My question is related to Alan's, and it is actually so encouraging to hear that other people here are feeling the disappointment that we're feeling about what's actually come forward. I think it's just not good enough. I mean, this is actually a really important area of the city. It's very distinctive. It's now a conservation area. We need to have a vision for it that is actually worthy of it, and that we're actually looking at quality design, quality materials. I mean, it seems to me that it actually went from being a vision for Romsey Square to looking at what we put in front of the Co-op forecourt, which is just not good enough. No. And I think, going back to what you said, Kevin, about the present consultation, I don't think it is actually going to give you any reasonable guidance on what people actually feel about it, because there wasn't really room to put about anything other than what kind of bike racks we wanted and what kind of grids around the trees. So, I do think we need to go back to the drawing board on this, and it's great to know that, people are happy to do that, and I'm sure that, people do have a vision for how this could be, and that could actually be a template for the rest of Mill Road, and probably for other areas in the city as well. It's also good to hear what you said, Catherine, about looking at this long term, because that's really what my question is about. So I'm sorry that Wendy isn't here tonight, because really my question is about public realm. I wanted to ask if the officers can identify sites for street scene improvements, including bike parking, along the length of Mill Road to improve the public realm, including having preliminary negotiations with landlords, costings and priorities, so that if money is available in future, there aren't going to be the delays that we've seen with this scheme, and that these things can be implemented in a more systematic way with proper consultation with residents. Thank you.
Any of the Romsey councillors wish to respond to Jean on that one? Councillor Baker?
Yeah, I think that we have, since the consultation's gone out, we've had considerable discussion about this. Yeah. And I think that everybody's aware. That's what this forum is about, in fact. Yeah. In part, this forum is about bringing the sorts of issues that you have in Deeport this evening. I think that we have heard this message loud and clear. Mm-hmm. And I think that you must expect in the future for there to be a better, perhaps more thought through consultation.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Dave. Richard Harvey. Richard, you're here, aren't you? Would you like to ask your question?
Yes. Since the Tenison Road closure,
the number of taxis and other vehicles, but particularly taxis, turning right into Devonshire Road is just outrageous. 15 while we were sitting in the restaurant waiting for our dinner the other night. Within 25 minutes, 15 taxis turning illegally right, making right-hand turn into Devonshire Road, holding up the traffic while they were waiting. Can something be done?
Unlikely.
Councillor Senate, do you want to respond to Richard?
I will. I completely agree. I mean, I myself observed one morning about 8:30, five cars in succession turn right into Devonshire Road, and I alerted our local police sergeant about it, and they will have sent people down there to monitor it, but they can't stay there all day long. That's the problem. So if they see it happening, they can do something about it with that particular driver. But you know, the sign is there. It says no right turn, and yet people still do, and more so now because of the works in Tenison Road. But in terms of enforcement, I'm sorry, I'm giving you a realistic response.
Yeah.
Do you know, I'm not giving you a response that, you know, lets me off the hook. Not that I'm on it particularly, because I'm not a law enforcement officer, but I'm giving you a realistic answer. I'm giving you an honest and truthful answer. And my question to you is, what can the police do? They cannot afford to have an officer stationed there the whole time. So hopefully, you know, they will nab individuals and find them, and word will get round. But
Councillor Washington, do you want to add to that before?
Just very briefly, anybody who's spent more than 5 minutes trying to deal with traffic enforcement with Cambridge Police will go grey within the space of about 15 minutes. But after that. But if there is a taxi driver using the no right turn junction into Devonshire Road, take a picture and copy the 4 Petersfield members in, and we will make sure it's enforced.
As it's taxi matter, I'll ask Councillor Bedstead to respond.
Yes, following up on what Councillor Walsh says, if you see a taxi driver or a private hire vehicle making that manoeuvre, make a note of the plate number, report it to the City Council. Should it be a South Cams private hire vehicle, we will forward that information through to South Cams. We will investigate, and if we find there is evidence to take it further, drivers will be disciplined. It's not all a police matter. The City Council does have certain powers as well, but we need to know the plate number and the time.
if I could just say that the vehicles I observed in that morning were all privately, they weren't taxis at all, they were private vehicles. So then it is a police issue.
No,
not for hiring.
I'll let Mr. Harvey come back, but I will let Richard, because he has done some research on this.
There is one point I'd like to make. Some of the signage appears to be missing. The signage that actually says no right turn ahead seems to have gone walkabout. And some of the other signage, the one that says straight ahead, in common with much of the other roadside signage along Mill Road, is now horizontal to the carriageway rather than perpendicular, possibly through minor collision accidents by large vehicles. So it might be unenforceable, but I would say clearly that right turn was meant to improve something in some way, but it doesn't. Even Travis Perkins vehicles, who know full well not to turn right there, do. So maybe whatever objective was intended to be achieved by that, county should look into finding some other way of meeting that objective, because clearly this is virtually unenforceable and not achieving anything at the moment.
I'll let Mr. Harvey come back. I'm not taking questions from those who want. Mr. on that matter anyway. Mr. Harvey.
Someone's just suggested, can we ask for a mobile CCTV camera to be situated there? Is that something that the committee can ask the police to do, is it?
Have to be special.
The council?
Yes, I've certainly not made a request recently, but we used to make requests for various areas of the East area to be monitored on a 2-month basis on that basis, yeah. Councillor Smart?
Yes, I think the process is that the ward councillors ask, and then they go through to the police and say, do you think this is sensible? You know, the police in the Senate are asked to say, I don't know if they actually have a veto, but at least they're asked to comment, and it depends to some extent how much rush there is on the cameras. But seeing as we're a peaceful city and nothing's going wrong,
Yeah, if it deals with a local problem and it assists the police in dealing with that problem, then yes, we can request that and we investigate whether that's still appropriate and available to us, Richard. Yeah.
Thank you.
Chair, I'm
Sorry.
happy to ask.
Councillor Sinnott will deal with that. Thank you, Anne.